And they were gone.
That'll do it every day. I did. The mayor, where are you talking about?
Well, we have a city county meeting. Do we also have a district meeting?
District.
Did you go to the district?
I went to the district.
That's what I'm saying. Can you go?
Well, it's pretty much in front of you. I think it's.
Well, but let's put it on the record.
Happy to put it on.
Did she go?
No. Just me. But I gave her all the information. I can give a brief overview of the meeting.
Well, is there any legislation that's proposed to be brought at the next legislative session?
That's good. No, I don't. They didn't talk about any legislative measures. They talked about the amendments. I mean, 74. Okay. It's 6 o'clock.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder to please turn off cell phones and turn on your microphones. Andrea, could we have roll call, please?
Mayor Bain.
Here.
Councilor Anderson.
Here.
Councilor Baker.
Here.
Councilor Becker.
Here.
Councilor Quinlan.
Here.
Councilor Scalisi.
Here.
Okay. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes for the meeting of September 24th? No? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as submitted. Visitors and delegations, I think we have the judge would like to say something at this time. Judge Jones.
Thank you. Sorry for the last minute notice, but a couple of things have come up that I thought I might want to talk to you about very quickly here, without having to go through the normal process. As all of you may know, or some of you may know, Judge Dennis Brandenburg was just appointed to the county court position in Morgan County. Judge Brandenburg was my backup judge here. Monty Torres told me today that he sent a letter in resigning because he has to, I think he takes office in January, if I remember right. The process for appointing associate judges of the municipal court, I don't think it's ever really been dealt with before. We always kind of did it on an informal basis. Typically what has to happen is the judge has to be sworn, however, and agree to do it. I don't know if it requires council approval or not. I've never really seen that happen here in the 12 years I've been here. So I kind of leave that to you folks, but I was thinking of reaching out to one of the local judges who's a part-time judge here over in Wiggins. Her name is Kim Emel. She's been here for about the same amount of time that I've been here. Only she's in Wiggins, and I think Wiggins meets every other month, if I remember right. And I was going to reach out to her, if that would be okay with all of you folks, to see if she'd be interested in being a backup judge here. And in the event that she were, then I think we could talk about the process by which we have to follow to see if we could get her to do that. So I bring that up just as a piece of discussion that we should probably have at some point in the near future.
And we've only got about 3 months left before.
Yeah, I mean, it really hasn't been an issue, frankly, because I think I've only used Dennis Brandenburg, I think, twice.
Okay.
In the last 12 years, believe it or not. So it really doesn't come up much, but it could. You have to have somebody to stand in for you if you get sick or otherwise indisposed or something happens to you. So,
okay.
There's that issue, and dovetailing with that is the idea, and I talked to Bonnie Torres about this morning, this just came up as well. I was invited by some people to apply for Dennis Brandenburg's position over in the Morgan City Court, Municipal Court. So I wanted to let you folks know I was going to do that. Monty said I should probably bring it up with you folks just so you understood what I was doing. I don't see a conflict. It's a different police department in the same county. The days for their docket are entirely different. It doesn't have anything to do with us here, frankly. It's still a part-time position. So he didn't see a conflict. I don't see a conflict, but I thought just to be reasonable and to be sure I'd bring it up to you folks just to let you know that I was thinking of doing that. Whether anything happens with that, I don't know. It's a process. And last but not least, I wanted to bring this up because it just really happened today, and it's been coming. I think the last time I spoke to all of you, with the exception of Ms. Anderson, she wasn't here. We talked about the idea about the new state statutes that have been coming down regarding municipal court. I think I mentioned then that there could be a problem on the horizon with court-appointed counsel. We still have a couple of ordinances that do have jail as a potential penalty. Today we had 2 defendants who finally decided to make a demand for a court-appointed lawyer. We have talked to the Fort Morgan Municipal Court in the past about this. They use an individual named Paul Weiss. He is a local attorney over in Fort Morgan. The going rate in Fort Morgan is $65 an hour. We have no real procedure in place to implement this process, although now I'm faced with the reality that I have to appoint someone to represent these 2 individuals, and we're going to do that by Friday. I haven't sent out an RFP. I don't think anybody's sent out an RFP for any of this. Typically, that's the way it's handled. You often do RFPs to individual lawyers to see if they're interested. You give them the information about how much money you're going to pay, see if they're interested. They respond back. That's something we should probably consider soon. In the meantime, I'm going to have to appoint these 2 lawyers right now. We'll see how far this goes. I can't predict how much time the individual lawyer will spend on these 2 defendants. It's really hard for me to say. But when you do have jail as jail as a potential penalty in an ordinance violation, that does raise the specter of court-appointed counsel if they're indigent. And unfortunately, both of these individuals today filled out the form that we use, and they do qualify for state indigency standards, so they're entitled to court-appointed counsel.
So they're entitled to that even if they're not held?
Correct.
Okay.
Because as jail is a possible penalty,
Okay.
that's the due process requirement in the state statutes, and also the Constitution require they are entitled to court-appointed counsel if they qualify.
Did you say $65 an hour?
$65 an hour. That's lower than most. It's actually $75 and $125 in most places. Just to let you know.
And who came up with the $65?
That's the state rate.
That's the state rate?
It's the state rate.
Wow, okay.
Okay.
That's so low that I would be really,
It's tied to a rational basis, and it's the state requirement. You can go higher, obviously, but that's about the floor, 65.
It's something we'll take off very short.
Something you should probably talk about, and then we're
Yeah.
going to have to probably take a look at the budget for that, because it would be we'll have a budget impact at some point.
Right.
We haven't had this up to this point. We've been fairly lucky, but now we do have 2 that do qualify, and we're probably going to have to come up with some process to make this work.
well, we've known about this for 2 years, and as of this past July 1st, it went into effect, so.
No, this has nothing to do with that new state statute. This is entirely different. This has nothing to do with in-custody arraignments.
Right.
This is about a defendant who is facing out of custody a charge that carries a potential jail sentence.
It's in as much as that we are jailing somebody or the potential to jail somebody, and we were in the process of lining up attorneys. We would have had somebody to take this if we would have stayed the course. And we should have been back in July. In fact, I think in a meeting, I can go back and look and see in which meeting, that we talked about what we were going to do for lining up attorneys. So.
It's possible. I brought this issue up before,
Right.
and it hasn't come up really as a reality
Right.
before.
The last time I remember we talked about it, it was only for people that were going to be incarcerated, and our tactics were that in most cases we don't incarcerate people anyway.
That's correct. And
This
that
is
really
something-
won't come
this
up.
is
This is
something different.
entirely different.
Yeah, we'll
Right.
take a look at it.
Okay, so those are the 3 items?
Yes.
Okay,
I
thank
have
you.
no objection to Paul. I have no objection to Paul,
Okay.
so.
Again, I think we should probably do an RFP, though. I think that's probably the way it's usually
Right.
done.
Would you explain what RFP is?
Request for proposal?
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
You bet, you're welcome. Thanks.
Safe drive.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to citizen comments. Citizens are invited to speak to council on items that are not on the agenda. There's a 3-minute time limit per person unless otherwise noted by the mayor. Please note that no formal action will be taken on these items during this time due to the open meeting law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. Tonight, we have a hearing on a proposed lamb facility. So if there's anybody who'd like to speak to council on another topic, that's on our agenda, so that would be better. If you're wanting to talk on that, wait till the hearing opens. Is there anybody who would like to speak to council? Okay. Moving on to management, number 5. 5A, public hearing application for special use permit filed by Colorado Lamb Processors LLC for an animal harvesting facility located at 19188 Highway 71, Brush. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Karen is going to provide a staff report summary of the application. Karen.
Good evening. I ask everyone to bear with me. This is one of those nice, long, involved, lengthy applications, so there's quite a bit to go through. But I will try and be as succinct as possible. So what you have in front of you this evening is a request for a special use permit, and that's a use where council needs to look at these on an individual basis. We pay particular attention to any conditions of the specific site or the area around it. And this is an opportunity to look at any impacts from the use, and is there a way to mitigate those so this would potentially be permitted at the location where it's being requested. And then in our regulations, we have 3 primary criteria that we look at for evaluating these. The first is compatibility. And within that, we look at potential traffic generation, noise, lighting, parking requirements, any other general kind of impacts that may come from the use. The second is conformance with the comprehensive plan, and the third is the applicant's history of zoning compliance with the city of Brush. The parcel that we're going to talk about tonight is part of the Old English feedlot. Currently, it is configured as a 61.32 acre parcel. It's northeast of that intersection of Highway 71 and County Road T, and this is about a half a mile north of Interstate 76 exit 90. This area was annexed earlier this year and zoned for industrial uses. The area is surrounded primarily by cultivated farm ground that remains under the jurisdiction of Morgan County. There is a neighboring house located at the northwest corner of this large parcel. And then the parcel immediately to the south of this is also inside city limits, and that is owned and used by the city of Brush for a shop complex that includes solid waste department shop and other general storage. In August of this year, some of this is going to be familiar because in August, council heard and approved a preliminary subdivision plat that would take this 63-acre parcel and split it into 2 pieces. And we have yet to receive the application for the final plat, but the engineer and the city continue to work on that particular subdivision, and we expect that application before the end of 2018. So with regard to this special use permit, Colorado Lamb Processors, LLC, has submitted this request that they would like to construct an animal harvest facility that will initially process approximately 1,200 head per day. Long-term, they're hoping to process 1,800 head per day. They're talking about using the latest technology in this plant that includes protocols recommended by Temple Grandin for the humane harvesting of animals. USDA Food and Safety Inspection Service will be on site on a daily basis overseeing operations. As a new business that is what we would consider a primary job creator, because this is a use whereby you're manufacturing a product on site. This is an initial product. Those are highly coveted in the world of economic development as a primary job. This particular company is looking at approximately 50 employees and hours of operation roughly between 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, with some Saturday work during their busy season, which would be Christmas and Easter holidays. This is purely a harvesting facility. The animals will not be fed or housed on site for any significant length of time. And then the corral area will be covered and constructed with a concrete floor to allow for easier wash down and waste removal. The animals are going to be trucked in daily and harvested that same day. After harvest, the proposal is to chill them overnight and ship them out the next day by truck. So when you look at all the various traffic, they're talking about this truck traffic happening primarily during their operational hours, with 4 loads of live lambs initially per day coming in, with a total of about 12 semi-trucks entering and leaving the plant. Those additional trips account for the shipments back out of the plant. It is anticipated that noise from this operation will not be objectionable outside the property. Actual harvesting occurs within the building, and none of the animal byproducts are processed on site. And when you look at the specific byproducts, they're proposing the handling of those products as followed. The first is straw and manure from the pens will be dumped in a trailer with the stomach contents, or what's known as paunch, that will be removed daily and land applied by a licensed contractor. The applicant did not specify the contractor nor the application site in their application. All offal items are proposed to be collected, boxed, and stored in the plant freezer to await shipping. All inedible offal is proposed to be collected in a sealed trailer and hauled off-site daily. All blood is proposed to be collected in a sealed trailer and hauled off-site daily. And then all lambskins are proposed to be graded indoors and trucked off each day. The application also notes that the USDA requires a pest control program to be part of their standard operating procedure, and they did not provide any details surrounding that particular plan within the application. Based on the information they submitted, they did not identify any type of emissions from the plant. Things that we're typically concerned with would be fly ash, dust, smoke, vapors, noxious, toxic, or corrosive matter that would potentially be detrimental to the health, vegetation, property, or air quality across property lines. And they also did not identify any vibrations or concussions that would be detectable beyond the property lines. So when we talk about this piece of ground in particular, it is not what we would term a shovel-ready parcel, since it is part of this larger 63-acre piece of ground. The preliminary plat that was approved talks about splitting this into 2 pieces. One parcel would be 23.18 acres, plus or minus, and that would be known as Lot 1. And within your application, or within your packet, there was a copy of that plat included. And so this parcel is to the northeast of this larger land area, so that you could see that. So once the final plat is approved and recorded, the legal description for the piece of ground in question would be most likely known as Lot 1, Agri-Park Subdivision Number 1. And so within that subdivision proposal, since it's not shovel-ready, you have to get roads and utilities in there. And so that application was talking about an internal road that will provide access from Highway 71 to Lot 1, and then construction of that road and any CDOT access permits that are required or being reviewed as a part of that subdivision process. Utility mains for water, wastewater, stormwater, electric, gas, and communication services are also being reviewed through that subdivision process. Various engineers are looking at that infrastructure on behalf of the city, with the primary person being RG and Associates. You saw at that preliminary plat application some of their review comments associated with that infrastructure, things that they need to further refine with that final plat application. And then with a subdivision, financial guarantees for the installation of all that infrastructure get outlined within what's called a development agreement, and that gets recorded with that final subdivision plat. Once that subdivision plat is, the final plat is approved and the development agreement is finalized, those documents can all get recorded at the Morgan County Clerk and Recorder's Office, and it's once those documents are recorded that any lots that are created through that subdivision can then be sold and transferred to a new landowner. So you've got a number of steps that have to happen before you have a piece of ground that can be transferred, and then you still have the need to get the rest of that infrastructure installed so that any end user could more easily use that piece of ground. So we're going to drill down into Lot 1 in particular, which is what this application is ultimately going to pertain to with that animal harvest facility. With regard to this particular use's utility needs, the applicant has been engaged in active conversations with the city regarding their impacts on city systems. They currently estimate they will need approximately 400,000 gallons of water per week. The utility department has confirmed the city has adequate resources to meet this need. And then with this type of an operation, we're often very concerned about the wastewater that comes out of the plant, both the quality and quantity. And so there have been extensive conversations between the applicant and city staff regarding this waste stream. And they've been doing their due diligence with regard to possible pretreatment options. My understanding is that the pretreatment system that's being considered is very similar to a system currently in use by a similar business here in town already. And so the recommendation is that the approval of this SOUP is conditioned upon the applicant entering into a utility agreement with the city of Brush. When we look at stormwater, this area was recently annexed, so it's not in an area that has established stormwater infrastructure. That's also being looked at through that subdivision. And on the west side of this Lot 1, there's a good-sized stormwater pond. And that pond will service stormwater not only from this lot, but also some stormwater from other parts of the subdivision. In your packet, there was also a more detailed site plan that showed exactly how buildings and parking lots and such would be laid out on this site. Final anticipated build-out of the facility is a 45,000 square foot building and approximately 5,500 square feet of covered corrals. Exterior lighting for the site was not specifically addressed within those initial application materials. I understand the engineer continues to work on and evolve that particular aspect of the project. The proposed parking lot has a parking space count of 104 spaces. When you look at our ordinance and requirements for spaces, for a building of this size and use, only 68 spaces are required, so they've got more than enough. And when we look at how the parking lot is laid out, our code does require tree islands be provided within the parking lot. However, at this point with the stuff, or the materials that have been submitted, there was not any type of trees or other landscaping specified within those tree islands at this time. There was also some other landscaping that was looked at very early on that would be located along the west property line of Lot 1, and that was primarily for some trees. That area has had some revisions with regard to the size of the stormwater pond, so we do need some updated and more detailed plans with regard to that particular area and vegetation and irrigation, proposed irrigation systems in that area. The site itself is going to have an internal driveway that encircles the facility. While this is primarily for the plant's operations, it will also facilitate access to the rear of the property in the event of an emergency. There are a number of fire hydrants located adjacent to this perimeter drive on the site. To date, the fire department has not identified any concerns with these proposed locations. So as far as I know, they're comfortable with what's being proposed. The applicant is looking at installing a 6-foot-high chain link fence with some barbed wire on the top for the eastern side of the site, and there's going to be some electronically controlled gates into that fenced area. And then while removal of waste and byproducts of the operation were specified in the applicant's narrative, the site plan does not identify a location for a trash enclosure and dumpster for any of the domestic or office waste. Regarding citizen comments, the application was noticed in the newspaper, and notice is mailed out to property owners within 300 feet of the area. To date, no comments have been received in my office with regard to this proposal. So when we look at the approval criteria, the first one being compatibility, it is anticipated that any impacts identified within this application can be mitigated through minor modifications and good management practices. The potential traffic generation, noise, lighting, parking, and other impacts associated with this appear to be manageable. And then within the staff report, I outline the industrial performance criteria. So when you look at industrial type noises, some of those other more detailed analysis are evaluated here. And so the finding through all those was that they were able to comply and not have anything that would be excessively detectable beyond the property lines. So the second criteria is compliance with the comprehensive plan, and it appears that this request is supported by the comprehensive plan. We particularly want to call out one of our goals, which is to develop a diversified and stable economic base that provides Brush residents with a variety of job opportunities, and then also a policy that we have in place to attract desirable businesses and industries to Brush. The third criteria is the applicant's compliance history, and to date they have been making a good faith effort to comply with all city, state, and federal regulations and requirements. Additionally, there's no history of zoning violations with the city. So with that, we have a conclusion and a long list of conditions associated with this type of a use. So should council find that this proposal has met the review criteria, the recommendation is to approve the special use permit for an animal harvesting facility with the following conditions. 1, the final plat for Agri-Park Subdivision Number 1 must be recorded after approval by Brush City Council. 2, once the Agri-Park Subdivision Number 1 final plat is recorded, along with any required development agreement, this special use permit and associated conditions are applied to Lot 1 of said subdivision. 3, a sales agreement is required to outline terms and conditions associated with the prospective sale of Lot 1 of Agri-Park Subdivision Number 1 to Colorado Land Processors, LLC. 4, maintenance of infrastructure installation of infrastructure associated with Agri-Park Subdivision Number 1, specifically utility mains and roads, must be complete prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for this use. 5, in the event that the facility is not constructed and a CO issued within 3 years of the issuance of this special use permit, the approvals granted in this permit will be deemed repealed. This matter does not need to appear before City Council for such repeal to be effective. 6, once the facility is constructed, the burdens and benefits of the special use permit shall be deemed to run with the property at law and equity, and shall be a burden upon and a benefit to the property, and shall be binding upon the City of Brush, Colorado, and the applicant's respective grantees, mortgagees, successors, and assigns, and any person leasing, acquiring, or owning an interest in the property or the improvements built thereon as authorized and approved by the City of Brush Council pursuant to Article 16-6-20, parens F, parens 2 of the Brush Municipal, or the City Land Use Code, and subject to the provisions of Article 16-6-20, parens D and E. Both the property owner, both the property owner and any potential operations entity are bound by the terms of the special use permit. 8, notice of the sale of the property or change in an operations company must be provided to the city within 30 days of such change. 9, 1 year after operation of the facility begins, the owner/operator must submit to a review of their best management practices with city staff. Any deficiencies identified during the review must be corrected in an agreed upon time period. Additional reviews should occur at 3-year increments. 10, should the owner or operator change, the new owner-operator must submit to a review of their best management practices with city staff after their first year of operations. Any deficiencies identified during the review must be corrected in an agreed-upon time period. Additional reviews should occur at 3-year increments. 11, the scope of this permit is limited to the slaughter and harvest of meat from sheep and lamb. Processing of byproducts from the slaughter process on site is prohibited. Prohibited processes include, but are not limited to, blood boiling, hide tanning, rendering, and similar processes. 12, a separate utility agreement between the applicant and the city must be approved by City Council. The agreement is to outline the terms and conditions associated with the connection to the city's water and wastewater systems. The agreement must be fully executed before a building permit for construction of the facility can be issued. 13, prior to the issuance of a CO, an offal management plan detailing the storage and removal of animal byproducts must be submitted and approved by city staff. 14, any corral water introduced into the wastewater treatment facilities will need to be upstream of the sampling station. 15, prior to the issuance of a CO, a management plan that addresses the handling of solid waste generated by corral washdown in the containment/removal trough should include, but not be limited to, waste trough cleaning frequency, solids stockpiling, stockpile disposal and frequency, stockpile runoff control, waste trough mosquito control, and it must be submitted and approved by city staff. An updated landscaping plan must be submitted and approved by city staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. 17, landscaping, including revegetation with native grasses of site areas disturbed during construction, must be installed prior to the issuance of a CO. However, if all conditions for the issuance of CO have been met, but the weather, such as a non-growing season or such, that it's not reasonable or prudent to install landscaping, the developer may deliver to the city a letter of credit in lieu of planting until the weather conditions permit. The form of such letter of credit shall be reasonably acceptable to the city and in an amount which is the amount of the cost of landscaping materials and installation as certified to the city by the developer's contractor or landscape contractor. The landscaping shall be installed within a reasonable period of time after weather permits or upon reasonable notice. The city may, but not be obligated to draw on the letter of credit to allow the city to complete the landscaping. 18, all lighting on the site, building, and corrals must be downward directional. 19, prior to the issuance of a CO, a Knox box for emergency access must be installed on site as required by the fire department. 20, it is the permit holder's responsibility to resolve any odor or nuisance complaints and or issues to the satisfaction of the city of Brush. And 21, a CO is required prior to beginning plant operations. Any questions?
And the CO is
Certificate of occupancy, yeah.
Are there any questions?
I've got one, Karen. On item number 12, the utility agreement says that we have to have that agreed upon city council before a building permit for construction of the facility can be issued. But we are in a situation where potentially the LLC could want to move forward with doing some footers or limited stuff for the end of the year. And if we don't have our utility agreement, is there a way that they can still start in some manner with a portion of the building? Because it sounds like they can do nothing. And I know winter's coming on, so trying to get some of the basic footers done was of interest. I was wondering if that one.
There's, in a situation like this, there's a variety of interests. So wanting to make sure you look at who's interested in what aspect. So the applicant for the use obviously wants to get things in the ground as quickly as possible. The city wants to ensure that we have a utility agreement in place that addresses all those various aspects of especially the waste stream. And there's some incentives that get tied to that sometimes. So some of it's just a matter of comfort level between those various parties. So that condition could certainly be modified. I don't know at what other point you would be comfortable with having that utility agreement in place before the certificate of occupancy. or if you want to try and split that apart, because we typically don't do a foundation-only permit, just because we don't have the staff to really juggle a large number of projects that would potentially be permitted and constructed in pieces.
The first one that you mentioned, the certificate of occupancy, can we tie that to the CO versus the building permit?
If council pleases, yes, you could make that change in that condition.
That just gives, it still protects us, but gives us some flexibility to work with them.
Okay, follow-up question to that, the pre-treatment options for the wastewater stream, that would be part of the utility agreement?
Yes.
Okay, and that hasn't been identified by the applicant as to what type of pre-treatment they would be using?
My notes are over here, and it
Okay.
involves both, or this is my pop quiz I'm gonna fail miserably that
Well,
Dale
I
prepped
can
me
ask the
on.
applicant.
It involves both aerobic and anaerobic digesting
Okay.
and bugs and covered lagoons, and it's
Okay.
reasonable degree of sophistication and very similar to what's already in operation at the other
Okay.
plant in town. So.
Any other questions? Karen? Okay, thank you, Karen. At this point in the hearing, I'll invite the applicant to present information on the application. Is the applicant here?
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Let them just stand in the hall.
Oh, come on in.
Hey, Mike, how are you? I'm Spence Rule, one of the 3 families that are applying for the special use permit. These are the Harpers that just came in behind me, and the 3rd family is a Raft Topless family from Craig, Colorado. We're all long time in the sheep business. I think probably between the 3 families, maybe 120, 130 years involved in the sheep. Mainly the feeding business, but also the producing, and we've all been involved in the packing business in the past. The reason that we're looking to build a new facility is there hasn't been one built in our industry for probably 40 years. So we are extremely far behind in the technology that is available today to do a cleaner, better harvest with less water, less energy, and this is why we think we need to be back in the packing business to ensure our ability to stay in the feeding business, and that's what these 3 families do, is mainly in the sheep feeding business. We picked Brush because we think it's a great community to be involved in. There's a lot of availability of people to get to work for us, and we just think it's a good place to be, and we think we're bringing a lot to the town with somewhere around 50 jobs that would be on the floor and probably another 6 or 8 or 10 in the office. So those are the main reasons that we're interested in doing what we're doing. If there's questions, I mean, we've taken some liberties as far as getting started with, of course, the city's approval, but we've cleaned up a tremendous amount of manure at that feedlot. Honest to God, I don't know how many thousands of yards of manure are out there, but this packing house cannot, there's no way in the world it could have the same problems that have been there for the last 10, 15, 20 years. I think if you've driven by and seen it, it does look a whole lot different today than it did a few months ago. Monty spoke to the fact that, yes, we would like to be in the ground early, and the reason for that is simply timing in the industry. It's going to take roughly close to a year to build a facility, and we really need to be and hope to be up and running by this time next year. So in order to do that, we have to get the footings and foundations in the ground prior to freezing. So that's the reason we're asking for the variance as far as going and moving forward. If you folks would have, the graciousness to approve that, we would really, really appreciate it. So other than that, we look forward to the approval if you can see yourself to give us that.
Okay.
If there's any questions?
Anybody have a question? I have one question. I have the holding pen facility for the 1,200 is all concrete, so it gets cleaned up every day.
Correct.
After the harvest, cleaned up. Do you have any plans for, let's say the plant gets shut down and you're not able to harvest that day? What would be your backup plan to keep that clean so that we don't have a problem with odors, that sort of
What would be the backup plan to get it cleaned? First of all, if we didn't get a harvest that day, we don't have the ability to feed inside that building, so we would probably have to come back, get the lambs. Our feedlot is about 8, 9 miles out of town, so we just come back,
So you
load the
move the
sheet,
animals.
take them back out, clean up again, and then bring the lambs back when the facility's up and running again.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move along in the hearing to public comment. Comment will be limited to 3 minutes. City clerk will keep the time on comments. Please come to the floor if you have a comment. Give us your name and address and give us your comment. Anyone who'd like to speak, now's the time. No one? Oh, we got somebody.
Steve Griffith, I'm 16841 County Road 26, just outside of Brush. Me and my family farm. We've been in the area my whole life. We feed cattle. My kids have grown up with Rule's kids. They're great people. They're great business people. They're just good to work with. I think it would be great for the community and great for the city for it to happen. I mean, they're part of the community. They're not outside coming in. They're part of the community, and I think that that's worth something. So, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Are there any final questions council has? Okay, I will close the public hearing at 6:40. And I would call for a motion to either approve or deny the application.
I would move that we approve the application
We have
With the conditions?
with the conditions, all 21 of them.
21 conditions.
What about the condition 12? In lieu
Moving
of-
forward,
In lieu of the building permit
yes.
to be based upon the CO being issued versus the building permit being.
Yes. I think if we can move forward and allow them to get the footers in before the weather changes, that would be a good thing to do, so, yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Andrea, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Bain,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks, for the people that took your time to come in here tonight. We're gonna move on with our meeting. You can either stay or go, your pleasure. Moving on to number 6, finance. Thank you.
We approve the city's expenditure from September 24th to October 8th of 2018, totaling $656,541.86.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi.
Yes.
Counselor Sherman.
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. Okay, my computer just went dead. What's next?
2019.
Yeah, okay, 6B, 2019 proposed budget submitted by council. Monty?
Okay, actually Joanne usually does this
Oh,
part
okay.
right here, but it's a budget that you guys have in your packet.
Okay. Joanne?
In your packet this evening, you have a proposed 2019 budget. This budget is based on state statute saying that I have to have submitted to council a budget by October 15th. Doesn't say it has to be complete, it's just a budget. And so that's what you have in front of you this evening. It does have all the funds. They are definitely not final. It's still missing the 2018 estimated and 2019 personnel numbers. We have not done anything with capital outlay yet in this budget as well. And then our 2019 administrative fees from the enterprise funds into the general, that's not been put into this budget either. But it is kind of a rough draft, but it is a budget and does meet state requirements.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on this? Okay. Okay, moving on to staff reports. Joanne. Should have stayed up there.
I always forget.
Good exercise.
Yeah. I just had one item to comment about this evening, and that is that the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment annually does offer us a rebate for our recycling. And so I did apply for that again this year. And this year we received for the time period of July 1 through June 30th of 17th to 18th, we did receive $3,818.51. We had received a little bit more money back in April, so the total that we've received for 2018 is $4,284. You may recall that we started our recycling in 2013, and the rebate started happening in 15. So between 2015, our first rebate was $1,829, and now it's $4,284. Our recycling has increased. We do have the poly carts out there that people are now using. We've got approximately 70 of those containers in the community. We do have 30 containers still to be sold if anybody's interested, and that service is a Wednesday pickup, and there is no charge for that pickup. You just have to purchase the container.
How much is the container, John?
They're $50.
$50.
We've discounted them about $50 is what we discounted them. And the other piece of that is we do continue to do the cardboard recycling through the county, and we have started getting very good revenue and generation off of that, which all these numbers do not seem very large, but they do help with our trash funds ending cash balance. So in 2013, our cardboard rebate was $965, and 2017 it was $4,575. So definitely using it.
And it'll save more money in the future too, because I know the landfill rates are going up in January, so that'll help. Thank you,
Exactly
Joanne. Police, Corey.
No report.
Community Development, Karen.
No report, sir.
You've been busy.
There's no
Public
time
Works,
for
Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to remind everybody we've got some cold weather moving in, and as such, we're going to see the change in our leaves on our trees, which means that they're going to be dropping very quickly. With that, I just want to put out that we are going to be starting our fall cleanup, which in short means that only leaves put in bags set out with your regular pickup is all we'll accept. No trash in bags sitting around, no large couches and such as it were. And we'll actually continue the fall cleanup through the end of November, because sometimes it takes a while for the leaves to come completely off the tree, and different trees, different areas and such. And so just want to we'll be putting it out and advertising our fall cleanup. Again, we don't want to have any trash into that. Also like to ask that our residents do not blow the leaves out in the street. I know that that's a common practice in Fort Morgan. You get the leaf blower and you throw it out in the street and they come pick it up. Well, we don't do that here. And so as such, just be advised that it is against city code to blow your leaves out in the street, and if we catch you doing it, we'll ask that you pick them up and bag them, and or you could be cited. So I don't want to leave that on a down note. However, it's fall again, and so here we are. Any questions?
Dale, the reason for not blowing them into the street, can you explain that?
Yes, part of the problem is that it plugs our stormwater grates, and if they actually get washed down into our stormwater systems, they can start to degrade inside our stormwater pipes. Then you're going to start experiencing odors and other odors, and there'll be a sludge that'll be generated. Plus, they tend to go to our stormwater ponds, and we can't allow that material to be plugging up our ponds with trash and leaves and everything like that. So we like to keep the gutters flowing.
Okay, thank you, Dale.
Okay, thank you.
Marketing, Tyler.
Yes, sir, just one item tonight. At the end of the month, October 24th through 26th, is the Economic Development Council of Colorado, also known as EDCC's annual conference, of course focused on economic development, and I'll be attending that. But the reason why I'm bringing that to council is that they always encourage public officials to come to that as well. It's a good educational opportunity, not just to network, but grow in your understanding of economic development and all of its different capacities and how that benefits the community, and they do have, historically, I was trying to look it up on my phone and real quick and couldn't find the information in time, but historically they have offered either discounted or free fees, I guess, for public officials. So if council is interested, anyone is interested, it's a good opportunity. So it's going to be at Estes Park this year. Again, it's the 24th through the 26th. Thank you.
And that's this
October,
month?
yeah,
Okay.
just a few weeks away.
Okay, so if someone's interested, please contact Andrea. Okay. Okay, City Clerk, Andrea.
Okay, today, our local liquor licensing authority approved a tavern liquor license for Malibu Bar located at 118 Clayton Street. So that's the local approval. It will be forwarded to the state for their approval, but just to let you know that you may see a new establishment there. For upcoming meetings, we have a 8-people table at the East Morgan County Hospital Foundation Fall Affair. So we still have a few seats available, so please contact me if you're interested in attending. And that's it for October.
Thank you. City Administrator, Monty.
Okay, a few items. First one, in regards to the budget, just a reminder, any questions, concerns, give Joanne or I a call as soon as you can. We're in the last few weeks of putting it all together, so it's better for us to know some of these things earlier on than later, because it's when you finish up a budget and you change one number, it changes not just 1 or 2 pages in the budget, it can change a lot of different things. So earlier that we get information or questions, is the better. Other thing is, with the special use permit passing tonight, or being approved tonight, another thing that we have to get done is a sales agreement with the parcel that the CLP group is looking to purchase and build upon. And previously, the city council in executive session gave me the guidances I needed to get that sales agreement put together. So those conditions that you guys gave us months ago, Bo and I will work on a sales agreement that you'll probably see, if everything works out, on the meeting of the 22nd, for them to purchase a portion of the feedlot so they can, if they get their building permit and get everything else done that they need to, that they can start building this fall. Last item, the search for a new police chief. All the interviews took place about a week and a half ago, and there was a community panel, there was a police chief's panel, there is a department head meet and greet, and then a interview with the city administrator. So all of those things have taken place, and next step is for some background checks and psychological testing, things like that are pretty standard for police officers. The candidate that we have identified now is going through those, but in the next week or two, we'll probably figure things out, get a little bit closer, and then once all of those are passed, if they're all passed, then I'll bring the information to the council for your approval.
How many, can you tell us how many applicants that we had?
I believe it was 7 applicants, if I remember right, and then we shortlisted to 4, and then after the community panel and the police chief panel, it was narrowed down to 3, and then, so we have an order now of the chiefs, and we starting with the first one, have a conditional offer, and if everything goes well, the conditional offer will stand maybe in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you, Monty. Moving on to mayor and council reports. Do you have any council reports? Heath?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the city of Brush, the citizens of Brush, family and friends, for your prayers, for your gifts. It's been a blessing in a lot of ways, what I'm going through. I am right now battling lung and colon cancer, but I'm going to try to beat it if I can. But it's just been a lot of support from the community, And it's been a very humbling experience so far. And so I thank you. We do live in a great community here in Brush. And so, just want to say thank you, and I'll try to be here as much as I can. I'd like to finish up my term, my last year, if I'm able. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heath. And we're certainly all pulling for you. You have our prayers. So thank you very much for that. Any other council reports?
I do have a report. I was able to go to the District 1 meeting in Ray last week, and you all have a copy of the Amendment 74, but also in the packet, or if you didn't get a packet, there's on your computer, there is the Amendments 74, 110, and 109 that CML has given their opinion on, so, and their request. So read up on that and vote according to your conscience.
And that's something we're going to talk about at our work session tonight,
Yes.
too.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Dan. Any other council reports? One thing I'd like to pass on, Betty Herbst, who served as a member of Brush City Council for 24 years, passed away on October 4th. She served from 1978 to 2002, and she was involved in many positive changes to Brush during that time. I just want to say our condolences go out to Betty's 4 daughters, Barb, Esther, Arlene, Kim, and their families, and funeral services will be held tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the Here Mortuary Chapel in Brush. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait. That was, did we have a city-county meeting also? Did anybody attend?
Yeah. City county meeting in Hill Rose.
Did anyone attend?
Yes, Monty and I attended.
Can you give us a short report?
They're really, well, go ahead.
It was a really good meeting, pretty well attended. The mayor and I attended it for the city of Brush, and probably most of the discussions were just roundtable discussions on what's going on in each of the different communities and some of the challenges that each community is facing. Overall, I was trying to remember if there was a main focus area, but I can't remember.
It was really each town, city went around the table and talked about what was going on. So we shared with them what's going on in Brush. They shared with us. Nothing major came out of that meeting that I felt necessary to report on.
For Brush, one topic we did talk about was we had the water district that was there represented, and just passed on that, you know, we do want to have discussions in the future. You know, we currently have an emergency connection that we're discussing with the water district, but maybe someday we can become a consecutive user, consecutive, I think that's the right term, with the water district, meaning that's another source for water for us in the future. Just something we have to discuss.
Did anybody bring up, first of all, Dale, did you want to say anything? I see you nodding, but did you want to say anything?
No, the food was great.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Hill Rose always has the best food. Everybody knows that.
Other than that, no, I was just, as described, we just talked about the different challenges in our communities and just what's going on.
Is there an update on floodway mitigation of the county?
They're delayed because they got more information, and they're hoping in the next few weeks to wrap up their study. That's the Colorado Water Conservation Board that's funding the study.
Is there still on the table a, I don't know if we actioned this or just asked for it, but back in the summer we asked to start a lawyer list. And are we going to go forward with that, or are we gonna just let Steve proceed the way he laid it out tonight for a list of lawyers? Do you know, Bo?
I don't. We have very few left in the community with Dennis's ascending to the county court. And the suggestion to you to use Paul Weiss would be a good choice. If it's $65 an hour, you can't beat that price.
Right. I would be surprised if anybody would do it for that, but if he would be willing to do it, Paul would be a great
Well,
choice.
apparently he's doing it for the city of Fort Morgan at that rate, so, hopefully he would agree to do it here for that same rate.
Right.
Why don't we schedule this for a work session at our next meeting?
Okay, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Anything else?
And if we follow the judge's suggestion, we would need to put together that form of RFP.
Right.
And send it out to the, I would suggest, Morgan, Washington, and Logan County attorneys. Maybe further, maybe Ray too, or what's that county, Yuma County.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
We're adjourned. We'll start our work session in 2 minutes.
Nice job tonight.
It's hard to tell because I got two that could be longer ones. The first